North Broward Hospital District is called. Roll call.
Commissioner Rodriguez?
Here.
Commissioner Uri?
Here.
Commissioner Fine, excused absence. Commissioner Wellens?
Here.
Commissioner Greatwald?
Here. Are there any public comments?
No, Commissioner, no public comments at this time.
There will be no approval of the minutes at this meeting. That will be rolled to the next meeting. And at that time, both of the October minutes and the November minutes, neither of which have been approved, but both of which will be available for us at the April meeting. Most of these topics of discussion are going to be fairly brief, and I understand that there are 2 reportable events, and I'd like Mr. Hartfield to come up and start the process.
Yes, so for the 2 reportable events, those are reportable events. There were 2 issues that were investigated and determined to be reportable events under our corporate integrity agreement, so I wanted to turn it over to Ms. Barrett to further detail what the findings were.
Thank you. So as you may recall, when there's a reportable event that involves a probable violation of law, compliance and legal work together, but since it falls under more of the legal analysis, we tend to report those. The first reportable event, if you remember, in around November of 2017, we advised the board that we had discovered an arrangement with an employed physician that whose compensation could not be confirmed as being consistent with fair market value, and we reported that under our CIA. We also advised the board at that time that we would be working together with compliance and with physician services, Beth Cherry, to look at other employment arrangements for that time period. If you recall, this was a prior existing arrangement from 2014-15. We would look at other arrangements in that time period to determine whether there were other employment agreements where fair market value could not be confirmed. And we did find another arrangement of an employed physician, again from the past, from the 2014 calendar year, contract year, where when we went back and looked at the total compensation paid to this physician, could not be confirmed as being consistent with then current fair market value. So we will be reporting it under our CIA, and we'll be reporting it to CMS under the Stark law. CMS handles Stark issues. If the board were to agree and make a motion to recommend to the board on the consent agenda that we report this issue to the appropriate agencies.
Do I hear such a motion?
I got a question. On this reportable event, they're just physicians. There's nobody. We don't have a direct reporting here. None of them.
No, it's an employed physician.
It's an employee. It's got nothing to do with us. It's well, actually, we have to report it, but
Right. No, it's an employed physician.
Okay.
And I'm sorry.
One is the CMS that we reported to.
CMS.
Yeah.
Right. So under our corporate integrity agreement, if you have an issue of a probable violation, you report it to the appropriate agency. In this case, it would be CMS, and you would advise and provide the report also to the OIG monitor, Laura Ellis.
Okay, all right. So I think that Mr. Harfield went over with me on that, but I just want to make sure that.
Yes, well, yeah, once we submit it to CMS for the probable violation of Stark, then a copy of that goes to our monitor, and that's all pursuant to our corporate integrity agreement.
All right.
And this grows out of the compliance processes that have been put in place, where we have been reviewing things. And as we said in November, this came to the attention of the legal department, and we worked with compliance and physician services, and we represented to the board that we would go back and look at other employment arrangements, particularly in that time frame. And we're continuing to do that. We're almost done. But we did identify a second arrangement.
So that's a very strict requirement from the OIG.
Right, the reportable for a probable violation.
Is the monitor already aware of these and looking forward to getting the...
Yes, so we have a very, very good relationship with the monitor, particularly Mr. Hartfield, and the way the monitor she likes to hear things beforehand, even if we're not sure. If things are 100% probable, if you could have 100% probability. So we do let her know that we are looking at certain issues. She does call us from time to time, and we may not know for sure, but we do advise her periodically of things we're looking at. So she does know that we were going to be bringing this today.
Do we know when these agreements were actually put in place? Because I know there's, they're 3-year, 2 or 3 year agreements. Were they renewed, if you will, or some form of evergreen element?
So they were not evergreen, but they were contracts that spanned the 2014 and beginning of 2015 calendar year. So they were largely entered into in around 2012 or 2013. Some of them were 5 years, some of them were 3 year. As they have been coming up for renewal, and sometimes even prior, we have been replacing them with the new form agreement, with the new model, with the quality initiatives and compliance standards that have to be met if any performance-based incentive programs are paid out. So all of the 2 reports that we've provided to the board so far have been now terminated or expired older agreements that we're discovering we couldn't confirm that the compensation, total compensation was consistent with fair market value, which is required, as you know, under Stark law.
These folks are still employed?
In the prior one and in this one, yes, they are still employed.
And I assume with a compliant contract?
They are, yes. So one is actually, yes, going to be, I think there's some amendments that we've done over the years, if you can't undo, but all of the current arrangements have been reviewed to be consistent with fair market value now.
Okay.
Now, do I hear a motion to put these on the consent?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And so the second reportable event is involves an issue with our Best Choice Plus program involving some contracting processes that hadn't been in place largely through the managed care department. And the legal department had become aware of this sort of in passing, and we immediately partnered with compliance as well as outside counsel to do an internal review. And we determined that certain of the managed care contracting processes as they relate to our Best Choice, which is our employee health network, were probable violations of antitrust law. So we have been working with the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, to work with them to determine how best to handle these contracting processes. In terms of going forward, as soon as we thought there might be an issue, the contracting processes were stopped. So there's nothing on a go-forward basis from probably several months already. We haven't been entering into new arrangements, but we're working with the Federal Trade Commission to look at the prior arrangements to see how best we can resolve fixing those. We've also been working with the FTC. We've immediately put into place we did an antitrust training program, which I know in particular Mr. Goldsmith was very interested in. It was very fascinating, I think, to him. It was conducted by outside counsel who is an experienced antitrust lawyer. It was several hours. And we are in the process of drafting an antitrust policy, which will include a mandatory annual antitrust training. Antitrust is a very specific area of healthcare law, very specialized knowledge. And we are now including that in all of our annual training. So those are the corrective actions that we've already started and have already been put in place. And as we work with the FTC, we'll advise the board what we've worked on with them. We've already met with the FTC and had a very, very productive meeting.
And again, the monitor is aware.
Monitor
of
is
this.
aware.
And how far back do these problems go?
Many years. Many years.
Being undefined?
Undefined as in more than 10.
Can I ask a question? I have 2 questions. One is, I think it's my understanding that this program, nobody really benefited from, right? There was no physician or employee that benefited. This was just a contract that was
contracting
outside
process.
of antitrust law.
Right, and that was one of the questions, that we have looked at is what was the benefit, or was this some a group of individuals that just didn't quite understand how the antitrust laws worked and to comply. They thought they were doing it properly, the contracting processes, and it turns out that they likely were not.
Okay, and my second question is there anybody on your staff in the general counsel office who has some expertise in antitrust law, or is
We
that?
do now.
You do now, so you have somebody in-house?
Well, yeah, so what happened was when we were looking at a different issue related to managed care, one of our outside counsels who specializes in managed care contracting made an offhanded comment that triggered something, and I sort of went to Nick, I said, hey, could we be doing this? And we were. So we knew enough internally in the legal department to question whether that was an issue. So we do have the expertise to identify issues, but to really go through the particulars of the Sherman Act and the Federal Trade Commission is beyond, that's what you go to the experts for.
Right, no, I just
Yeah.
want somebody, did we have somebody who had sort of general knowledge
Yes,
of that, enough
we
to?
do. And now.
To recognize maybe
Yeah.
there's something here and we ought to, okay, good.
Yeah, and to that point, Mr. Santorio actually came in one day espousing the Sherman Act preambles, I think, multiple times. So he's actually finding antitrust issues where they aren't any, but that's better than not finding them where they are.
Unfortunately, I spent too much time reading it when I was in graduate school for economics because it's all
Right.
antitrust law. It is not fun. And
It's very technical.
In your graduate school, was there an example of an antitrust violation where the firm failed to capitalize?
I've never actually seen one where the
I think
entity
this,
putting it in place
'cause I
doesn't
remember,
benefit at all, and
in-
in fact, didn't even know they did it and didn't even know why they did it, or how you would benefit
Yeah.
from it.
Well, ironically, at least my cursory review of this week, it was actually a negative impact.
Yeah, probably.
Right.
So, but what we've got, we're well on our way
Shocking
to
in and of
rectifying
itself.
it, moving forward. This isn't going to happen
Yes.
again, right?
Not to downplay the importance, though, of
Correct. Okay.
being compliant.
Right.
Do you need a motion for this, or?
Yes.
So-
Oh,
So
sure.
you got a full house now?
The attorneys in-house?
Yeah.
No, not yet. We're still recruiting. We've had those hard to place final
What are you
position.
waiting, what are you waiting for, a bus?
Hopefully a train, speed train.
Software.
Software, right,
program.
software, which will go through the procurement process.
So
do I hear
you need a
motion?
motion to bring this to,
Just to recommend to put on the consent agenda that we be permitted, as we did previously, to do the appropriate reporting to the agencies.
so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the second reporting period, annual report update.
Yeah, so I wanted to provide this committee with an update. So the annual report was submitted on time and on December 3rd or 4th, as required under our corporate integrity agreement. It was, if you recall, it was due on November 3rd, and it's due on November 3rd every year. But due to Hurricane Irma in 2017, we were granted a 30-day extension. So it was due on December 4th due to the 3rd falling on a Sunday. I received a letter from the OIG approximately 2 to 3 weeks after submission, stating that they had received it, and they received it timely according to the corporate integrity agreement. And that is the last that I've heard from the monitor in regards to our annual report. So I'm still waiting for feedback from her in regards to any questions that she may have, whether she deems it, complete and acceptable. So last year when we submitted it, it took her about 2 months to get back with this. So we're at about, a little over 2 months now. So I would expect anytime in the near future, we'll be getting a response from her.
You should ask the monitor when you talk to her the next time, that when it comes to a hurricane, some people were out of power for 30 days. So if you're without power for 30 days, you can't do any work.
Right.
So they should extend it at least 60 days.
Well, I asked for just a 2-week extension. She was,
Well, she was-
just because I just kind of looked at it as Broward Health was kind of down for a 2-week period, to where, kind of the week leading up to the hurricane, everybody was, focusing on getting prepared for whatever was coming. So all meetings kind of, came to a halt. And everyone was focused on that. And then the week of the hurricane, everyone was focused on dealing with the impact of the hurricane and the operations of the hospitals. So I'd asked for a 2-week extension when I spoke to her, and she granted us a 30-day.
It's a good thing she did that, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's not uncommon to be without power for 30 days.
Right.
In Broward County,
Yeah.
so.
And doesn't she usually come down during the reporting period?
She did last year. Yeah, she came in person last year and was here for, I think approximately 4 days. Met with senior leadership, went and toured a hospital. She went to Imperial Point and toured the hospital, spoke to leadership of that hospital. She got some presentations of, there were certain things that she wanted to see in regards to like our contracting process, stuff like that. Last year she wanted, certain people, so like the head of contracts came in and spoke to her about things that we were implementing, tracking remuneration process that we were implementing. So I would assume she will do the same thing, but again, I'm only assuming. I'm not sure if she will do it in person again this year or not.
So that takes care of monitor communication.
Well, so the monitor communication is a little different. So in previous compliance committee meetings, I've always just kind of given a rundown of just the other standard communications that I've had with the monitor in regards to requirements under the corporate integrity agreement. So with those, so like every month we send out, just kind of like Ms. Barrett spoke earlier about the reportable events. One of the communications we've had since the last compliance committee was reporting the reportable event that the board approved us to report in regards to the previous employed physician, the Stark self-disclosure that Ms. Barrett previously discussed. So we reported that to the monitor within the time frames required of our corporate integrity agreement. Also, some other communication I've sent under the corporate integrity agreement, I'm required to report to her any changes in the composition of the Board of Commissioners. So your appointment to the board was communicated to her as well. Also, we have an internal compliance committee here at, made up of senior leadership. Any changes in that, I'm required to report to the monitor. So there were several changes within the structure of the compliance committee. We added different people as people are being brought on in different types of roles. We always continuously look at that to see if we have all of the relevant people on the compliance committee. So we've added some new roles as they've come on. So that was communicated to her as well. We do monthly, so any HIPAA breaches that we have within the month is a reportable event under our corporate integrity agreement. So every month we report those out. Instead of doing those individually like we do other reportable events, we lump the HIPAA breaches into one letter and report it at the beginning of the month. So for the month of February, we reported that at the beginning of March and sent out a letter for all the breaches in February. So we sent letters for the month of November, January, and February. We didn't have any breaches in the month of December. And then I also sent one request to the OIG for an exception to contract language that is required. So we had an agreement with the state of Florida. The states don't tend to like, they tend to like their templated agreements, and you either agree to it or you walk. So we have requirements under our corporate integrity agreement because the Florida Department of Health is a source of healthcare business referrals to Broward Health, which makes them a focus arrangement. So we have certain requirements under our corporate integrity agreement that we have to include certain language within those contracts. Our monitor has always been very willing and open to hear us out in regards to any of our challenges with state agencies, nonprofits, stuff like that. So I sent a request to her to exempt us from language in regards to a Department of Health memorandum of understanding where we'll be sharing data because the state didn't want to include the language.
And she typically approves those pretty quickly?
She has, yes. So the last one took a little bit, but generally speaking, she approves them pretty quickly. So when she's given us several exemptions in the past already, it's just this one kind of fell outside. Like she's already exempted like when the state gives us grants, county gives us grants, stuff like that, she's exempted us from including that language, but this wasn't a grant, so it kind of fell outside of of what her exception that she'd given to us in the past. So I sent a new letter to her requesting a specific exception for this one. And she's provided us with exceptions to leases, in regards to state agencies, stuff like that as well.
Okay, next, compliance reorganization, that's also you.
Yep. So I just want to, and I've talked about it with the committee in the past, but I just want to bring it up again because as we've, since I've come on, we've kind of assumed 2 additional functions that the compliance department didn't have before us. So with the focus arrangements team being brought on to the compliance office, and then also here recently, ethics was brought in as part of compliance. The previous structure of the compliance department was really kind of a top-down structure where it was the chief compliance officer, then a director, and then everyone underneath the director. So as we've added these different functions, what I've done is kind of broke out the structure of the compliance department. So now we have, so reporting to the chief compliance officer will be 4 or 5 different people. So the executive assistant, the director of focus arrangements and auditing, the senior privacy specialist, our new ethics manager, and also the director of compliance operations. And then, so underneath them, it's now been broken out to where the director of focus arrangements will have the focus arrangement team, our new position of tracking remuneration manager position that was recently created and filled, and also we'll have the auditors that do our clinical auditing when we do medical record reviews and stuff like that. So the director of focus arrangements will have those responsibilities. And then the director of compliance operations will have the oversight over the regional compliance managers, our senior compliance specialists, and our compliance analysts.
Is there a graphic of that somewhere?
There is, and I can provide. I didn't bring one with me. I tried to, but I recently got a new computer, and they didn't upload the software on it, so I wasn't able. When I printed it this morning, when I went to go print it this morning, it would not allow me to. But I have an org chart, and I can provide that to all the
That's the
commissioners.
same work chart we've seen in the past, right? So
It is. It's a little bit more detailed out, and I've taken some of the positions that we had, and I'm transferring them into different roles.
okay,
Because we really don't.
updated version of that.
Yeah. So I
Do you
can
have
provide
any
an
of your
updated.
people here?
Hmm?
Any of your people here?
I do. Those are the next items. Is I wanted to introduce the people that are to the 3 new roles. So I'll start with with our new ethics manager. So if Adeline, if you want to stand up. Adeline started in January of 2018. She came to us from doing, she was working for a year doing investigative legal work in an environmental tort case against an international conglomerate. She went to Dartmouth undergrad and Stetson Law School and graduated from there in 2013. Prior to doing the investigative legal work, she worked for the Children Legal Program, which is funded by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and they provide legal services to unaccompanied, undocumented children here in the United States. She also has extensive experience in training in regards to ethics and has been and has done, like I said, training sessions in regards to legal ethics, stuff like that for other attorneys. She's been a great addition to the compliance team. Welcome. Also wanted to introduce you to our new regional compliance manager. Chris, if you wanted to stand up. So Chris came from us Chris has his law degree and an MBA from Florida International University. He started here in December of 2016 as regional compliance manager. He's currently assigned to Broward Health Coral Springs. And prior to Broward Health, Chris worked for 4 years as the director of risk management at Coral Gables Hospital.
Did you steal her from Clint Barrett's office?
I did not. No, he came from Coral Gables. So he worked at Coral Gables Hospital
Like,
as risk
good to see
management.
that competition over.
Yeah. And then I want to introduce our new tracking remuneration manager. So Henry has actually been a longtime Broward Health employee. And Henry was already a member of the compliance department as a regional compliance manager, and he had been in that role since August of 2016. But what made Henry a great fit for our new role was that prior to compliance, he spent 9 years in the finance department at Broward Health Coral Springs. So he is intimately aware of all of our payments and all of our systems that we use and everything like that. And I think Henry will do an excellent job and has already started and has been working in the role and developing our policies and procedures surrounding, our requirement to track remuneration has been in countless meetings with Alan's team and, and working on all the safeguards and checks that Alan's team has put in place to ensure that payments are consistent with the contract. And I think he'll make a great addition as the remuneration tracking manager.
Good job.
Welcome, all of you.
Yeah, welcome.
Anything
that's it.
else?
No, I just want to say that I had a real good meeting with Mr. Hartfield on the staff, and you guys did a pretty good job with that other information, and it was really helpful.
Good, I'm glad it was.
So,
And I'd like to say I appreciate all the help because I'm being uploaded on any given moment.
And I don't want a congratulation on knowing that the first time you meet the monitor, she's going to say, no matter what happens, you're responsible. So,
And on that happy note, do I have a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Do I bang the gavel
You
again?
can bang it, yes.
Power. Who gets this, you guys?